Hello and welcome back to another Rush Duel Links deck profile. Today we're taking a look at the kind of Yamiruler warrior pile deck that we have been seeing going around. Now this is sort of an anti-meta pick. This is kind of a rogue deck that does have pretty good matchups into both Join Tech and Music Princess. And the primary reason for that is Yamiruler himself. Yamiruler basically makes it so your opponent cannot tribute summon monsters, which Music Princess doesn't necessarily have to tribute summon their monsters, but they do have to get them into the graveyard and then use Ballet, or have both the fusion material in the hand and then use Ballet. So typically they will want to tribute summon, and the Join Tech deck basically has to tribute summon. If the Join Tech deck isn't tribute summoning monsters, the deck isn't really doing anything. So Yamiruler being able to stop both of that is actually pretty good. Now this strategy won't work against every deck. Fullmetarion, for example, stopping them from tributing is just going to stop the leading actor, which can be really impactful, but a lot of the time won't be. So first things first, let's take a look at the skill Destiny Draw Music Princess. So it can be activated from turn 2 onward before your normal draw. Twice per duel if going first, thrice per duel if going second. Now this can be quite important because oftentimes Straight Pierce is kind of our win con, so we are going to want to make sure that we get that. So keeping track of how many times you've used it can be very important. We could place one Music Princess's Battle Ballet, which, spoiler alert, we're not playing, or Straight Pierce from your deck or graveyard on top of your deck. Now this is very, very important because this means we can get it back from the graveyard, which means we only actually have to run one copy of Straight Pierce. Very, very good. But we can only put Music Princess Battle Ballet once per duel. That doesn't really matter because we're not playing it. In this draw phase, if you would draw until you have 5 cards for your normal draw, instead draw until you have 6 cards. So basically we get an extra draw, and that draw is guaranteed to be the Straight Pierce. So this skill does work in a little bit of a weird way. The only kind of annoying thing is you won't know that if you're going to be able to guarantee have 5 Wind Warriors in the graveyard on the turn you activate the skill, because you activate the skill before you draw, so before you look at what your hand's going to be. But I will quite often use this skill early, even if we're not really planning to use the Straight Pierce on the turn, because we don't want to draw into the Straight Pierce. So we basically just guarantee that we're going to get 5 cards that aren't Straight Pierce for our draw, which is pretty good. But what about the rest of this deck? Well, first up, we have Yamiruler, the Dark Devotee. This card's actually really, really strong. Obviously, 2500, 2500, fantastic stat line. But if we have Yamiruler, the Dark Delayer face up on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand face up to your field. So a free 2500 body, that's pretty good. We can also change the battle position of one face monster on our field, which most of the time will be the Yamiruler itself, because we can summon Yamiruler, activate its effect, change it to defense, then summon out Yamiruler, change Yamiruler back to attack. Its Floodgate effect is still on, but it is an attack position. And as long as it stays face up, one Yamiruler the Dark Delay on your field gains 500 attack. So that's a permanent 500 boost onto Yamiruler, which is absolutely fantastic. Having a 3000 attack monster is really, really great. But not only that, if it attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage. And again, that is a permanent piercing effect. And one of the best boards we can make is we go Yamiruler and then we can go double Yamiluna, activate both the Yamilunas to get the Yamiruler up to 3500. We then have that with piercing, and then with the skill we can activate Straight Pierce, and then we have a 4500 pierce, a 3500 pierce, and a 2500 body, which is just so good. The other card we would like to have in this end board is going to be one of our fusion monsters, thanks to the Miracle Fusion. If we're able to get, for example, a Burst Wingman, pop on opponent's back row and have a 3100, well, that's fantastic. But don't forget, we can also use Burst Wingman's effect to boost our Yamiruler or our Yamiluna, and if we use it on Yamiruler, obviously this could have piercing. So this thing could go up to 4500 piercing, which is just insane. So the other monsters in the deck, we have Sayanin the Blazing Conqueror. So this is a really cool card. Its stat line's pretty good, 1000, 1200. If we have no other monsters on our field, we can add a level 8 fire or dark attribute warrior monster from our graveyard to our hand, but monsters with 1900 or less defense cannot attack this turn. This is a very important restriction, and there was one game we did play where this did actually come up and we weren't able to have lethal because of it, so do remember about this restriction. It's quite annoying. But we are able to get back Yamiruler or Yamiluna. Obviously, we need to have one Yamiruler in play in order to turn on the Yamilunas, so we just try and find what we don't have, and then we can play on from there. This is also really, really good just for recycling Yamiruna specifically to get the Floodgate effect off, because ideally we want to be floodgating our opponents every single turn. Then there's Trombo, the Music Princess of Melodic Crown. Trombo is just such a good card. So send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard, which again is fantastic. We want to get lots of Wind Warriors into the graveyard anyway. We want to get Elemental Heroes into the graveyard because of Miracle Fusion. And because we have Sayanin, we want to get our boss monsters into the graveyard as well. And then we can send one Wind Attribute monster from our hand to the graveyard to draw 1 card. So discard, draw. I mean, that's pretty good on its own. And if we have a normal monster in the graveyard, we can change the battle position of one monster on either field. So being able to change our opponent's monsters can be really impactful. That means we can either get damage in if they're going defensive, or we can change an offensive monster to defense position and attack over it, which again is really good, especially when we have so much piercing. But don't forget, we can also use this to play around Shady. If we summon, for example, a Yamiruler, our opponent activates Shady and flips it down, or we can summon out Trombo, discard, flip up our Yamiruler. Now, Yamiruler's effect won't be able to be used that turn anymore, but we still can special summon Yamiluler from our hand, and then we just have the Trombo, Yamiruler, and Yamiluler board, which is pretty good. Then we have Horn-Eyes the Music Princess. This card is pretty good, but this wasn't behaving very much while we were doing testing. But during the turn that you normal summon this card, send the top card to the graveyard. Again, filling the graveyard, fantastic. Then if we sent a warrior monster to the graveyard as effect, you can add a warrior type normal monster from your graveyard to your hand. Now this effect is really, really good. The issue that I had was in testing, we just kept milling spells and traps, so we just weren't getting those mills, which means we weren't getting the plus off of it, which is quite frustrating, but still a really good card nonetheless. And then we have Elemental Hero Avian. This is a wind warrior, which means we can use it with straight pierce. It means we can discard it with Trombo. It's just really, really good for all of those reasons, but also it works with elemental circulation, and we can fuse it using Miracle Fusion, so it's a no-brainer to have it in. And then Elemental Hero Burst Dinatrix, again, works with elemental circulation, and is used for our fusions to get out the Burst Wingman or the Flame Wingman, depending on the situation we find ourselves in. Then we have the Miracle Fusion. Again, most of the time we are just going to be making Burst Wingman because popping our opponent's back row and gaining attack is always really good. But occasionally going into Flame Wingman can be exactly what we need to close out a game, so we will occasionally go into that. For our legend spell, Pot of Greed, because Pot of Greed is just fantastic, right? Drawing 2 cards is always good. It's never going to be bad. The only reason to not play this would be if there's another limit 1 we really want to use. And the only other limit 1 that we'd probably want to use is Compulsory Evacuation Device. But because Join Tech is so prevalent, we'd rather have the Trap Hole for that. Then we have Circulation. Circulation, again, really, really powerful card. Being able to just turbo through your deck is really, really strong. That's why there's so many different decks playing Elemental Circulation, even if they have nothing to do with Elemental Heroes. Being able to find Yamiluners, being able to find Yamirulers, being able to dig for trap cards, being able to find Miracle Fusion, being able to do any of these things is all so powerful. So Circulation is one of the best cards in the game, and it definitely finds a home in this deck. Then we have 2 copies of Avian Spell Tactics. Being able to pop back row can be really, really good, because again, there are really, really strong trap cards in the game right now. We can also put a warrior to the top of our deck and then use Horn Knives to send that warrior back to the graveyard and then get another plus from the graveyard, which is also really good. So Avian Spell Tactics just absolutely fantastic. We can also just use it to set up our following turn. If we have a Yamiruler or a Yamiluler that we want for the following turn, we just put that on top of our deck and draw into it on the following turn. Then there's Straight Pierce. Straight Pierce is actually so good, and the deck is basically built around it. So by shuffling 5 wind attribute warrior type monsters from the graveyard into the deck, we can choose a face-up level 7 or 8 monster. So this is the only slightly annoying thing. We can only use this on Yamiruler or Yamiluna. We can't use this on any of our low levels, and our fusion monsters are all level 6, so we can't use it with those. But we can make one of our Yami monsters gain 2000 attack and piercing, which is unbelievably good. So if we're able to go, for example, just a Yamiruler and a Yamiluna, well, Yamiruler becomes a 3000 piercer, Yamiluna becomes a 4500 piercer. That is already 7500 piercing damage, which on its own might be able to end some games. So Straight Pierce, absolutely fantastic. And don't forget, we can use this multiple times throughout the duel thanks to our skill. Then for our legend, Trap Hole. Trap Hole is just the best legend trap at the moment, in my opinion. Now, there is still an argument for compulsory, but I think I would rather have the Pot of Greed and the best trap to deal with specifically Joint Tech, but also this trap is good into other decks as well. This is good into Music Princess. It's not as good into Music Princess because obviously they're ballet, so even if we send their boss to the graveyard, they could just use ballet and go into another one, but this can still shut down their turns depending on what kind of hand they've got. This is still really good into 7s, because if we use the Trap Hole on 7's Road Witch, that can again just shut down their turns. Trap Hole is still just really, really good. I think it covers the most bases at the moment, so at the moment, I would say Trap Hole is the best, with Compulse being the second best legend trap. Then finally, we're on 2 copies of Shady. We did try to fit a third, but realistically, I like the balance of the rest of this deck. Shiny Shady is a really, really powerful trap card. This is maybe at its weakest against something like Joint Tech, but against everything else, this is the trap to have. Against Music Princess especially, Shiny Shady is definitely what you want to have, even though, again, they can play around it using Trombo. I still would rather have Shady than not have it. So this is the deck, and like we say, the primary strategy is that we're going to floodgate our opponent, we're going to summon out a load of attack, we're going to give a load of our monsters piercing, and we're going to hope that we can just kind of out-control and pierce over our opponent and take all of their life points. This deck is going to have some awkward matchups, for example, Fullmetarion, but in testing, we actually did beat Fullmetarion more than we lost to it. Realistically, Fullmetarion should have the advantage because they don't have to tribute summon very much, and again, we're playing a warrior deck, so they can just go into a Sure Start, absorb all our attack, and then punish us for that. But in testing, it didn't seem to work out that way. We did seem to have quite a good matchup into it. The only deck we really struggled into was Seven's Road. That deck did manage to pretty much bully us, but at the end of the day, it came down to them having back row hate to hit our traps, and then us not being able to capitalize and just taking far too much damage on the first and second turns of the duel, which is not really where you want to be. But let's find some replays, and I could show what I've been talking about.